Welcome to Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant podcast. These are the stories of those who have received, given, and who are waiting for the gift of life, organ transplantation. Now here's your host and heart and kidney recipient, BJ Odom.
Welcome to the Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant podcast, where we explore the extraordinary world of organ transplantation. I'm your host, BJ Odom. Each week, we share inspiring stories and introduce you to remarkable individuals sharing their own transplant stories. Be sure to support the podcast by leaving a 5-star review and subscribing on your preferred podcast platform. Have a transplant story you'd like to share or maybe comments about the podcast? We would love to hear from you. Just email us, giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget to connect with us on Facebook. As always, we appreciate it. Welcome to episode 52. We continue to celebrate National Donate Life Month as we wrap up our first year of podcasting. This week, we meet Renee Collins. Renee is a heart recipient who admits of other health problems before her transplant journey began. Renee's first heart issues began with AFib and several ablations. After suffering a cardiac arrest, she was hospitalized and received a life-saving transplant. Renee's journey was long and hard, and we'll talk about it all coming up next with Renee. Talking with Renee Collins this week. And of course, Renee, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself as we get started?
I'm 62 years old. I have had some medical issues all my life. Everything was always a little more difficult. You know, the common cold was not common for me, things like that. I live in Florida.
You're close to me then. I didn't know you were living in Florida. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, where are you?
I'm in the Orlando area.
Oh, nice. Yeah, so we live in Florida. We originally from Maine. Owned and operated a convenience store back in 1995. We had that for 20 years, my husband and I. After he was old enough to retire, so we sold the business and moved down to Florida.
All right. So now where did all of now you say you were sick at birth, or not really at birth, but younger in life also. It's kind of been a way of life with you. Same here. I had a bad heart from birth and went through, all those years. And then I was about 50 before I got my heart transplant. So when did everything really start with you and your heart journey?
We moved down here 2015. 13. I'm sorry, my husband corrected me.
I have a wife that does the same thing.
And I moved my medical down in 2014. And when I found a PCP, I happened to be Mayo Clinic. And I had private insurance, so they accepted me. And my PCP found that I had AFib. And that really was the journey of my heart. We battled the AFib, having multiple ablations, having multiple cardioinversions, probably for 2016, 17 maybe. I ended up going from a regular cardiologist to the heart failure department, 2015. And then I had a cardiac arrest in 2019. And they couldn't understand why all the multiple ablations and the cardioinversions were not holding. Most people have one or two. I was having them every 2 months.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I was having a lot. And so my heart failure doctor decided to get into my genetics and see what was causing the problems. My family does have a history of heart problems, but not to the extent that I have. My father had a couple of stents put in, and my mom had AFib as well. My grandmother had heart problems on my mom's side. So we did a battery, the whole spectrum of genetics. And it was determined that I have a TTN gene mutation, which is basically what it does. The gene attacks your heart and causes you to go into heart failure. And the longer it never goes away. So this gene will also attack my new heart. But it took over 50 years. So they figure I'm a good candidate because I lived with it for years. Since then, I went from heart failure to cardiac arrest. It was on my birthday. We were out for breakfast celebrating my birthday, and I collapsed. I don't remember anything. The next thing, I think I woke up 9 or 10 days later.
Oh, wow.
And my husband said, you're in the hospital. And I didn't have any idea what time of the year it was. I didn't have anything the last thing I had remembered was driving back from Maine and getting to Pennsylvania, which would have been mid-September. And then I didn't remember anything until I woke up in the hospital in mid-October. So after they discharged me here at our local hospital, the cardiologist told my husband that where I'm a Mayo Clinic patient, I probably should go and have them check me. And so they did a whole battery of tests and determined that the mutation gene has gotten worse. And my ejection fraction number were down into the 30s. I believe it was 20s, 30s, I think it was.
Now, was that the beginning then of your transplant journey, or had they talked transplant before this?
Well, my heart failure doctor said you might need a transplant somewhere down the line. And I said, okay. And he said, after the cardiac arrest, they put in a defibrillator so that I wouldn't have another cardiac arrest event. And, but that was way in the beginning, that was like 2015. And he said it was nothing to worry about. It's not anything urgent. Just keep in the back of your mind that you, in all probability, will have to have a transplant. So 2023, I got my transplant, August of 23.
Now I'm going to ask you the $10 million question. When you had the defibrillator, how many times or did it go off while you had that?
I had an event once, but I was sleeping, so I didn't even know it.
It didn't. Obviously, it woke you up, though, or not? I'd be curious.
No,
it didn't.
I didn't know it.
Oh, wow!
It had because I was on my defibrillator was connected to a company that read it, and they showed events happening, but I never felt any of them. So I'm a pretty strong person.
Sounds like it. Yeah, because I was going to say, I've talked to many people. Now, I was lucky. I had a defibrillator, pacemaker put in. And luckily, I think I had it for, maybe almost a year. And it never went off. So I thought that was very fortunate. But
That's very
yeah, that was. And I've talked to a lot of people though that have had them and had them go off. In fact, I have a friend who had one malfunction. And of course, you live here in Florida. He drove all the way from Fort Myers all the way up to Tampa General Hospital in Tampa. And it was going off like every 5 minutes as he was being driven to the hospital. And then, of course, he got there and they found out there was a malfunction in the machine. But nonetheless, I can just imagine going on a 2.5, 3 hour drive with the thing going off of every 5 to 10 minutes. It must have been
I can't imagine.
one heck of a journey.
No, mine went off. Yeah, mine went off, but it wasn't strong enough that it broke the connection before I actually got zapped. Does that make sense to you?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
So, that was the one and only time. And then when they did my transplant, they took the defibrillator out.
Yeah. Same here. They did that.
Yeah. Which is fine because I don't need any more stuff going on.
Now, I noticed that you talked about your husband a few minutes ago. Now, what was his thoughts when you first, because I remember my wife just totally freaked out, but what was your husband's thought when he first found out that you were going to need a transplant?
I don't know specifically.
Of course,
I think
it might be when you got the call that they had a heart for you, or you learned.
I never actually got a call. What happened was I was at home waiting. So every 2 weeks I would go to the doctor and I'd tell him how I was feeling and we'd do the blood work and, we'd do all the testing every 2 weeks. And then it came one day in July, end of July. I had an appointment with my doctor, transplant doctor, and she said, "How are you feeling today?" And I said, "I don't think I can go another week." And she said, "Okay, let's get you in the hospital." So I think she was expecting me to go in the hospital way before I did.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went into the hospital and she had got me, everything was all prearranged. There was a bed waiting for me and there was nothing that was urgent as far as admissions and stuff like that. I think he was scared, obviously, my husband, but he had been going through all this with me too. So, he was my main caregiver. So he's seen me progressively getting not being able to, the quality of life was really null and void.
Okay.
I got up in the morning, I got dressed if I felt like it, and I'd try to do things. And if I could do it, I did it. If I couldn't, I couldn't. And there was more couldn'ts than I could.
Well, one good thing that probably happened too, being admitted to the hospital, I know that takes you higher up the list or gives you a more urgent status. Because I remember while I was waiting for mine, I was in pretty bad shape, but I guess the insurance I had, they could put me in for 10 days and then they had to send me home for 5. And then I'd go, and I think that happened like maybe 3 or 4 times. And I was in the hospital and it was my final day. I was being released the next day and the wife was going to, come pick me up. And because we were living in Fort Myers at the time. So she's going to have to take me back to Fort Myers, wait 5 days, and then take me back to Tampa General. And the last day, in the middle of the night, they came in and said, "Oh, we've got you a heart. You might want to call your family and tell them to get here because probably we'll take you first thing in the morning." Although they didn't end up taking me till the end of the day, but I had to call my wife like at 4 o'clock in the morning, get her and get the kids up and they got in, and they all arrived, obviously, before the surgery. But yeah, I remember she was freaking out. I was like all excited about it. I go, they found a heart. And she's going, oh. And yeah, so she was a lot more rattled than I was. But, I was a sick one too. I knew how sick I was, but, it really pretty much freaked her out when I found out.
Yeah, it was so very organized. I was actually kind of amazed. I didn't do any group therapy or anything like that. I really actually went in blind completely. I didn't want to know what other people had gone through. I didn't want to know how bad it was for other people. I figured just because it was bad for them, it wouldn't necessarily be bad for me.
Yeah, I remember my doctors telling me that. They go, well, you can look at all this stuff up online on the internet, and you can read as much as you can, but our suggestion is you don't. And I took their suggestion. They said I was more than welcome to, but sometimes that would scare you more. And I'd been sick all my life, so it was kind of like a way of life for me anyway. So I figured, hey, right, whatever it is, it's going to be. And of course, they even told me too, every case is different. So even if you read, what may have happened to other people, it could be totally different for you. So yeah, I was kind of like you. Yeah, I don't need to know. I don't need to hear. We'll do it, and then we'll see how things work out. And I was one of the lucky ones where things worked out pretty well. I'm 22 years out now.
That's amazing.
So
that's amazing.
Yeah, I think 20. The only thing though, now that I'm at 22 years, I'm going, whoa, this is pretty amazing here. I might need to start, rethinking all this stuff. But how are you doing now? And how many? Now, when did you have yours? What year did you have your surgery?
August 4th of 23. So I'm a year and a half.
Oh, you're just a baby still.
Yeah, I'm a newbie. I've still got some issues going on, but not with the heart. The heart's great. I know my husband researched all the stuff, and he read everything, and he took pictures of the IVs that are hanging off my pole, and he would research the medication, and I just laid there and said, do whatever you got to do.
Now, did you have a swan? Did you also have a swan in probably?
I did have a swan in, yeah. That was comfortable.
Yeah, I remember not all, people that are listening may not know what a swan is. It's basically almost like a heart cath that they put through the neck, and it can monitor, your heart pressure and, it just pretty much measures everything. Plus you can put drugs directly into the heart. And every time I'd go into the hospital, I have to get one of those put in, and they were very, I think probably for me, that was maybe the worst of the whole process.
I obviously don't remember the transplant. And I think the swan was the most uncomfortable because they put one in and they left it in because I was in the hospital with it. So I slept with it, they bathed me with it. It was very uncomfortable.
Oh yeah. Once it went in, it stayed in. But like I said, I guess maybe it was fortunate then because I would go in for 10 days and I'd get thrown out for 5 and then go back in for 10 more days. But yeah, I remember every time that I walked into the hospital, they inserted a swan. And of course, that was another thing though, that took me further up the list. And when I wasn't in the hospital, I had a bag beside me that was basically giving me, IVs, even the 5 days when I was out of the hospital. So I was receiving medication for the heart.
Yeah.
Well,
I was very, very fortunate because I got in at the end of July, probably 2 weeks before the end of July. And I was only in there a week and they found my heart.
Ah, awesome. Now, let me ask you this. Now, I know you said Mayo Clinic and there's a few here. Were you in Weston or were you up in Jacksonville?
Jacksonville.
Okay. I was going to ask you who your surgeon was because it's really funny. I had mine in Tampa, but I've talked to some folks who've had theirs at the Mayo Clinic down in Weston, and they had the very same surgeon that I had previously who worked in Tampa. So that was always a cool story to share. So who was your surgeon then? Do you remember?
I don't know his name.
It's Turkish, sure had to pronounce.
My husband's here too.
Okay.
They called him Dr. T.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know.
He didn't have a mohawk, did he?
I don't know. I honestly, if I saw him on the street today, I would not know who he was.
All right.
I had 5. Mayo has 5 different transplant doctors in the team, surgeons. So I saw all 5 of them all the time.
Yeah, I don't think I really met my surgeon until after the surgery, but I had, transplant cardiologists that would look in on me. So that was good.
Yeah. And the surgeon who actually did me, I know my transplant cardiologist said he was one of the best because he'll make your scar not look like so prominent. Some people have very prominent scars, and I really don't.
I don't know if this happened to you or not, but I've actually, before my transplant, I had 3 other open heart surgeries, and I've always been either stapled or sewed back together. And when I had my transplant, they actually used glue. And I always tell people, man, my heart, my chest looks better after my transplant than it ever did before. They used glue and did a great job. So you're feeling pretty good lately, but you said you have some problems that's not with the heart, I guess.
The heart's great. I think part of the reason I got my heart so fast was I agreed to a heart in a box. And I agreed to have whether the patient or the donor had hepatitis C or not. So it gave me a wider range to pool, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
And then my blood type made the pool smaller. So that helped me. And my height helped me because I'm only 5'1".
Okay.
So between the blood type and my blood type, my height, and the fact that I was willing to take a hepatitis C heart, gave me advantages than other people.
Was that a heart that you finally got that had the Hep C, or did you get lucky and avoid that?
No, she had Hep C.
Okay.
But they gave me medication pre-transplant while I was in the hospital. And then they gave me, post-transplant, they gave me more medication. And I don't have it, so...
Well, that's good. Then.
Yeah. I had rejection once, a heavy rejection, where they put me back in and they wiped my immune system completely out again and started all over. And that was a week, I believe I was in the hospital for that. And since then, I haven't had any rejection. My last blood work, they were doing biopsies every week, and then every month, and then every 2 months, and for the first year. And they, like the swan, they would go in your neck and go down and do a biopsy.
Mm-hmm.
And I always came back with a little bit of rejection for the first year. But this last blood work I had came back absolutely no rejection. So
good deal.
Yeah.
I battle, and I don't understand it completely, but I battle every now and again with donor-specific antibodies, I guess, which, are causing some havocs every now and again. But like I said, 22 years, and they're keeping it under control, so I got no complaints.
That's awesome. I do have some other problems, like I went in with a stage 3 kidney disease. I went in with scoliosis, which affects how the heart is going to adapt into the rib cage. that's all from, not the kidney disease, but the scoliosis is from childhood.
Now, are you needing to go on dialysis, or where's your kidney disease at? And then did you have that going in or after the transplant?
I had a stage 2 kidney disease, or stage 3. I am a stage 3. I was a stage 3A, and now I'm a stage 3B. So it's gotten a little bit worse. And again, they talk about transplant. But I drink a lot of water. I make sure I do that.
That's good.
I was right on the verge of doing dialysis, and he said, you need to fix this. And so I just overloaded with water, and eventually it corrected itself.
Yeah, I wish I would have been a better patient with that and drank more water, because I did in 2015. Then I ended up getting a kidney transplant also. But like I said, all systems are, pretty positive right now, so I can't complain. But I had to go through dialysis and then got on the transplant list for a kidney. And I think too, because of the heart transplant, and they know that the dialysis is a strain on the heart. I don't know if that helped or not, but it maybe got me up the list a little bit, because it was like less than a year that I was on the transplant list for a kidney.
Oh, well, I know between changing my medications and me forcing the extra water down through, I think I got it back down to where it's manageable.
Good deal.
Right now. Yeah. I don't need that.
Well, is there anything that we may have missed, or anything else you wanted to discuss this morning as we have you on the podcast?
I don't think so. I know I can honestly say that there's a lot of things that I didn't think would affect. I thought there would just be like an ablation. They'd go in, they'd fix it, put the new heart in, and I'd walk out the door. And it really isn't like that.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, since I didn't do a whole lot of research, I was kind of thinking the same thing you. But like I said, there's been ups and downs, and I think in almost every transplant, no matter what the organ is, you're going to find ups and downs. But hopefully, you got good people there at the Mayo Clinic, and they're probably watching you closely. And as long as you're doing what they're telling you to, the best of luck there. Now, have you been involved in any of the organizations as far as support groups or?
I have. I've sat in on a couple of them, but other people are saying the same thing I would say. So I'm a pretty quiet person. I'm pretty personal too. So I don't know.
All right. Well, I appreciate you for coming on the podcast and sharing your story. And, hopefully this will help other people. That's why we do this. It's almost, I think, basically a year old now. So, we've been doing these weekly for a year now, as you are, episode number 52. And we wish you the very best of luck.
The one thing I would tell people is make sure you do the physical therapy and the OT, because I thought I didn't need occupational therapy as well. So I only did physical therapy. And now I think if I had done the OT as well as a PT, I think maybe my body would be stronger today than it is.
Thank you, Renee, for sharing your incredible journey along with us today on the Gift of Life podcast. Be sure to join us each week for a new heartfelt episode. If you have a transplant story, email us, giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook, and don't forget to like and share this episode with family and friends. We would appreciate that 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. Another podcast you might enjoy is myself and former radio partner Bill Stevens. BJ and Bill, the podcast, all on the Podcast Playground Network. We want to thank them for making this podcast possible. Until next time, I'm BJ Odom. Thank you so much for being a part of our journey, and remind us all to appreciate each and every day and to treasure the extraordinary gift of life.
He was running on empty, heart fading fast. Doctor said, man, you ain't gonna last. But a stranger's kindness, a gift so true, turned the night sky into something new. He got a second chance, he got a brand new spark. Like a freight train rolling back from the dark. Gift of life, let the story be told. One heart beats, another takes hold. Give a little, save a soul. Ain't no greater rock and roll. 15 years later, the road got rough. The fight ain't over when the climb is tough. Needed a kidney, the race was on. Another hero stepped up, kept him strong. Every breath he takes is a tale of hope. One life saved, another can cope. Gift of life, let the story be told. One heart beats, another takes hold. Give a little, save a soul. Ain't no greater rock and roll. Doctor's hands, a donor's grace, running on down to a brand new place. Second chances don't come twice, but when they do, man, they feel so nice. So let's spread the word, let the people know. One yesterday lets a miracle grow. You don't need wings just to save a man, just a little love, a helping hand. Gift of life, let the story be told. One heart beats, another takes hold. Give a little, save a soul. Ain't no greater rock and roll. BJ still rocking, still standing tall, thanks to the ones who gave it all. Gift of life, hear the sound. Pass it on, pass it down. The Gift of Life podcast, hosted by BJ Odom. Listen now.